Hey everyone, my name is Vicky Flanagan, and I wanted to just talk a little bit about why sacred sessions and the work that we do can be quite powerful and transformative. So I was writing content for my session on Sunday at the Hill of Tara, but I thought, why not share it with people who might be called to hear this, that might resonate with this information. But I've been feeling quite under the weather, so nothing major, just kind of like cold symptoms like, sore head, feeling really like, tired and, sniffly. And, I'm not that unwell, but I noticed other people were saying they felt kind of similar. And I reached out to someone and said, oh, I feel the same way. It's kind of frustrating because I have so much to do. I don't want to be sick. And this person said, yeah, I know, it could be the Lionsgate portal, it could be the energies at the moment. And I thought, yeah, it could be. And I've heard that before. And, it got me thinking that, like, there's no way if you were to go back, to our grandparents' time, even our parents' time, like I'm 33 now, but if I was to go back in time to when, our grandparents were like in their 20s or 30s, they would never, ever use that language. They would never say, like, you could be feeling a little bit under the weather. It could be the energies at the moment. There's a lot of solar flares, we're going through a major portal, the Lionsgate portal. It just wasn't something that was on anyone's radar back then. And it's not because we've now become so out there and woo-woo. We are becoming more, we've opened up our capacities to relate to energies, those subtle frequencies. We're becoming more sensitive. So as we've kind of evolved, which isn't that long ago, we think about when our grandparents were, younger, like it hasn't been that long a time, but we've evolved massively. But the world today, the certain structures and systems that exist, they have generally stayed the same. And in my opinion, maybe that is why we're seeing the crumbling of some of those systems and structures in that kind of capitalist society. The way that we used to operate isn't working anymore. We've evolved. We're more sensitive to energies. If you think about, I was listening to Caroline Mace, who I just love, and she's a great person to listen to if you need that kick or that push that you've been looking for. But she talks about the micro and the macro. So the issues that we're dealing with in our personal life are the same issues that's happening on a global scale. So in the macro. So most of us, if you look at the issues in our life, obviously people will vary slightly, but the major themes for a lot of people at the moment are, feeling lonely, feeling disconnected, and really craving that sense of belonging, community. A lot of us are working on our purpose and the relationships in our life to really, we're all seeking more authentic connections, authentic, meaningful, purposeful work. And if you look at then the macro, which is on a global scale, and looking at the systems, the patriarchy, capitalist society, and how those structures are beginning to kind of get rattled, some are starting to crumble, it makes sense that we need to dismantle one way of being in order to align with who we authentically are now. So there was a time, possibly in our grandparents' era, where they did not consider themselves as whole beings. So it wasn't as important to consider yourself as mind, body, and soul and spirit. But now we are recognizing that more and more, that we are whole beings, mind, body, soul, spirit. And it's important that our lives are connected to those parts of who we are, our whole selves. So if we're dismantling a world that doesn't value our whole being, then we need to create a world that does. Okay, so if you're working on your purpose, the best way to kind of connect to that is to connect in a way that's joyful, that creates abundance. That's what we're looking for. I imagine nobody wants to be suffering here. So fast forward, obviously my journey is quite a long story. I'm not going to go in and bore everybody today. But what I found is, so grateful for the energy work that I've studied with my teacher, Kenneth Hover, and how it opened me up to the subtle frequencies in nature. And that began a beautiful relationship that I didn't even know was possible. Like, I didn't even know that it was possible to connect to a body of water, to the earth in a way that was symbiotic, these mutually beneficial relationships. I just thought only humans could kind of connect like that. And I didn't realize other beings could connect like that. When you look at work from Robin Wall Kimmerer, who I also reference sometimes, who I just love her book, Braden Sweetgrass, but she talks about reciprocity, and she talks about how when you love the earth, like one of her quotes is, knowing that you love the earth changes you, activates you, and to defend and protect and celebrate. But when you feel that the earth loves you in return, that feeling transforms the relationship from a one-way street into a sacred bond. So, I remember reading that book when I was lying on the beach in Vancouver where I was living. I think this was like last year. And I think it was last year in 2021. And when I read that, it really caught me. And it was actually during reading that book, I had just finished, I was a few months after finishing my energy work course, and I was practicing and practicing, practicing. And it was that body of water, the one that I would sunbathe beside every day, that I actually was called to, and began my initiation and just really connecting with the elements and connecting with consciousness, other types of beings that I didn't know was possible to connect to before. And so began this really beautiful journey. But I'm so grateful to the work that I did, the energy work, because it was able to open me up to those energies which I didn't even know existed. And I remember even, I think it was late last year, and I had said to Ken, my teacher, I said, I feel like, I said, this is kind of odd. Like, since I did your course, like, all I want to do is work with the land. Like, all I want to do is offer healing with the land and just have this really beautiful relationship. And he said, yeah, of course. Yeah. He said, that's exactly what the courses are for. And I said, oh, and he said, everything I do is for the land, everything. And it just opened up, it just like shattered all these programs I had that you get from living and being brought up in a capitalist society where we're kind of striving for one thing. It's very individualistic. And all of a sudden, from opening up to energies that had always existed, but now I was able to relate to them, it just opened me up to a whole new world, everything that I was craving, that sense of belonging, community, purpose, authentic connections. Everything happened the minute I opened up these frequencies and started to do this work. It can actually make me feel a little bit emotional, but from a place of joy and just gratitude and just like hallelujah, because I was definitely someone that had tried so much on my healing journey, and read all the self-help books. I did different modalities, which are beautiful in their own right, and I'm so grateful for as well. But they were all part of the path to lead me here, to lead me to this beautiful work. And I always say that, like, I used to think I needed to leave Ireland, in order to heal, and then I could love Ireland, and I lived in Canada for 7 years, and I felt the call home. I felt the call back to Ireland, a place that I never thought I'd want to come back to. And I realized then, from these relationships that I'm building with the land, I realized that I didn't go away to heal so that I could love Ireland. I went away to heal so that I could feel the love that Ireland has for me. And that is what transformed me. That is what was so deeply healing. I was actually able to receive the love from the earth and draw energy from the earth rather than from other people or substances or whatever, right? But now I'm connected, right? So it's definitely more than a ripple out effect. I suppose it is in a way, but if we bring it back to the universal law of one and what Caroline Myss was talking about when she says what's in the micro is in the macro and vice versa. So what is in the one is in the whole. It cannot be any other way. So if you're working on balancing yourself, that will have a ripple effect, that will ripple out and into the world. So to go back to, the thoughts of us living in this individualistic society, which we have now, right? It just caused massive gaps for our whole selves, our mind, body, soul, spirit. And as we begin to rebuild a life where our deepest desires and our purpose and our most authentic relationships are realized, that will actually look probably very different to the lives that we're living now. And I say that it is more than a ripple effect, and it comes down to a thing called reciprocity. And again, this is something that Robin Wall Kimmerer talks about a lot in her books and just in her speeches as well. And you should definitely look her up and look at some of her speeches. But when we talk about reciprocity, it is about it's the practice of sharing, it's the practice of giving and receiving. So it's not about taking. When we objectify nature, it's so much easier to take, right? Because it's not us, it's separate from us. So we're not really damaging ourselves because that's outside of ourselves, and we're off the hook. Okay, and that's kind of how we've been living. And that's why I think, I don't think it's any surprise that really loneliness, depression, anxiety is on the rise, because the more that we separate ourselves from the very thing that made us, the very thing that sustains us, the earth is our ultimate mother, it made our bodies, it holds our ancestors. The more we separate ourselves from that, the more painful that is. It's almost, you're just pushing yourself away, really, because what is in the one is in the whole. What you do to someone else, what you do to another being, including nature, is like doing it to yourself. And it's kind of a hard thing to grasp again until you start to practice reciprocity. That's why I love the work with Sacred Sessions, because reciprocity is built into the practice. It would not work if we were to go to these really sacred, powerful places. We were to go to where vortexes are beneath the earth and take and ask them to heal us, transform us, and we walk away. Okay. This is about, first we show up for the land, we give with gratitude, and then we ask to receive. And again, it brings me to another quote by Robin Wall Kimmerer. So she says, action on behalf of life transforms, because the relationship between self and the world is reciprocal. It's not a question of first getting enlightened or saved and then acting. As we work to heal the earth heals us. So again, it's that reciprocity that will kind of ultimately save us, bring us in alignment with our whole self and our highest purpose, and, the life that we dream of, really. So when we show up, we give first to the land, and then we ask to receive. So we're actually having a mutually beneficial relationship. And this kind of practice, for me anyway, I'm speaking from experience, right? And that this is what I'm teaching. This is the whole point of Sacred Sessions Ireland, is for other people to be able to live like this and just, have the life they want, but in a way that's like, it might seem radical because it's so it's so far from the capitalist society that we've been brought up in. It's so far from everything that we've kind of known in mainstream and Western culture anyway, right? But it's so easeful, it's so beautiful, and it's like addictive. Like, once you feel what reciprocity feels like and you have that baseline, it's the only way you want to live your life. And I'll give you an example, right? So for me, again, I'll just bring it back to myself. For me, and I'm sure other people, like, I didn't have a real example of reciprocity, not that I was conscious of. Okay, so for me to be in a mutually beneficial relationship, I just didn't really have that. It was either I was given too much or I wasn't doing enough. Right, so I was either a people pleaser or I was, a commitment phobe, and I just wasn't given enough, or I was given way too much. It was always that kind of polarity. that power struggle where one person's struggling, one person's gaining, and you're just left feeling like I'm not enough, just constantly, whether you're the one getting the more or you're the one that's being taken from, you're just always left feeling like I'm not enough. And then you bring that out into your life, in other parts of your life, and that's what it's manifesting. So it all makes sense, I suppose, when you look at like how we've been living our life. But when you move, when you go into nature, and we go to these sacred sites in particular, you can kind of do it anywhere, but working with Sacred Sessions Ireland, when we go to these sacred sites and we practice reciprocity, it all begins with a gift. So when we show up with a beautiful gift for the land, and even if it's a gift that the land made itself, right? The earth has made everything. Everything is from the earth. So when we give a gift to the earth, Ken, my teacher, he says it's so funny, like it's so beautiful and like so funny, but it's like, when you're a child and you make a gift for your parents, or your mom or whatever, and you make like, I would have made probably like a painting, like a little finger painting, and it would have been terrible. Do you know what I mean? Just like the blobs on the page, and I would have given it to my mom, and then she would have been like, "Oh my God, it's amazing! It's so beautiful! Like, did you do that all by yourself?" And you'd be like, "Yeah, that's a dog, and that's this." But that's similar to how the earth, our ultimate mother, that's how the earth receives our gifts. So if we give her wildflowers, if we give her sacred tobacco, if we give her crystals, all from the earth, right? And the same thing, Mother Earth is going to be like it. You can feel it in your body, right? It's like, wow, oh my God, you made this. This is for me, So, it's the same feeling, and it is a feeling. It's quite visceral, and no one, I could tell you all day what this feels like, but until you experience it, it's a whole other, a whole other story. So that's kind of what we show up with a gift, and so begins this new, beautiful, like mutually beneficial relationship. And then the earth heals us back, right? So we can go there with our hopes and our dreams. And if we've built up enough rapport with these places, they will offer us so much love, so much healing right back. And so if you think about that, if you're practicing reciprocity with the earth and on a regular basis, this is naturally going to ripple into your life. So you're going to find you have a baseline of, oh, this is what reciprocity feels like. This is what it feels like to be in an equal relationship. There's no power struggle here. Like, it's empowering. So now that when you're with your current, friends, family, colleagues, your partner, whatever, you get to choose to show up in a more enlightened way. So you get to choose to bring reciprocity into your relationships. And because you know how transformative it is. So you get to be the example for people in your life. Maybe you didn't have that example. You get to be that example now. And then, because you're practicing and this is your new way of being, those authentic connections, those opportunities, whatever that you've been craving, those people that see you for you, that show up for you, that are just so kind and supportive and everything you've ever wanted, those people see you, they feel your vibration and they're magnetized towards you. And I know this because it's happening for me. And yeah, once we start living that way, I don't really think there's any other way to be. Now, definitely not perfect, and I want to be a better friend, and I want to be a better daughter, and I want to be a better, partner, and those things will come for sure. And I think we're always wanting to be better, and it's through this work. It's not through berating ourselves, not through self-loathing or putting ourselves down, or like, doing more courses and workshops and trying to be better. It's actually practicing these principles, and yes, it's a skill. I think it's a skill. I've learned this work. I've learned these tools, these energetic techniques. So grateful to be able to have access to that learning, and then to be able to, show other people. So yes, it's a skill. Yes, it's a practice, but I also believe it's a remembering. So this isn't new information. This is like ancient wisdom. This ancient wisdom lives in your DNA. It's in our bones. This is probably how our ancestors, way back thousands of years ago, would have related to the land. And it's a remembering. So we're reactivating, we're awakening that ancient wisdom, and we're using it here now in the modern world in 2022. But maybe we have better tools now, maybe we have better techniques now, I don't know, but we have ways to connect. So it's weaving the two together in order to, maybe rebuild this new earth. I always hear people talk about the new earth. Maybe that's it. As these other old structures are dismantling and we're transforming in our own personal lives, and in the macro, the global collective is also transforming. It might seem really slow, but in the whole of the cosmos, in the whole time that Earth is here, like, it's actually probably like a little blip, in time. So let's make the most of it. Let's go there with ease. I'm kind of done with the whole suffering thing. I'm ready to just start to enjoy the journey to those highest goals and highest dreams. And I'm sure you are too. Yeah, so that's kind of how my story went, to some extent. Not realizing that these energies existed, to hearing about them, understanding kind of on an intellectual level what's going on, and then learn the tools, learn the practices, and to open me up to be able to relate to these beautiful energies and start to learn how to relate to them through reciprocity is one way. There's so much more to this work, but I just wanted to give people a glimpse of why we're doing this. And you don't need to be someone that was born into a family that was super, understood nature, or was kind of hippie or whatever. Like, you don't have to. You can this is your birthright, in my opinion, and you can start now. So thank you for listening. And if you have any questions about Sacred Sessions Ireland or whatever, like to join an event, whether that's in person or online, please do reach out. Slán.